everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining today's session on Free Network Configuration Manager Training Series. Before we start, I would like to get a quick confirmation from you all. If you can hear me well and see the presentation slide, please use the webinar chat panel and type yes. Let us wait for a couple of confirmation and then we can get started. Alright, as many of you have confirmed, let's get started. My name is Suresh Bhagwati, Evangelist for ManageEngine IT Operations Suite. I'm with ManageEngine for the past 10 years. Before I ended up in this role, I was working as a support engineer with OpManager technical team and helped customers and prospects around the globe to make best use of OpManager in their organization. With all this experience, I'm here doing a 5-part free network configuration manager training series. And as you all know, in the first 2 parts is already completed. In the first part, we discussed about the different ways of getting your inventories inside OpManager and how to effectively apply filters and discover only the devices that you wish to manage in the monitoring tool, and how to enable the automatic discovery so that as and when the devices gets activated in your network will be automatically discovered by OpManager. And in the second part, we discussed about monitoring the server performance and the key metrics. And in today's session, we'll be discussing about monitoring the network performance for the routers, switches, firewall, interfaces, bandwidth utilization, and so on. And following this, next week, same time, we'll be talking about effective fault management and IT automation. And on October 24th, we'll be discussing about network maps, reports, and best practices. More importantly, the recorded version of this webinar will be emailed to you along with the training material within 24 hours time. And also, the recorded version will be published in our website. You can make a note of this link, opmanager.com/training.html is where we upload the training session recording. And you can use this link for later reference or share this with your friends and colleagues who missed to join today's session. All right, so let's get started with our week 3 topic, monitoring network performance. Let me quickly run through the agenda for today's session. First, we'll be discussing about monitoring the network performance for the devices like routers, switches, firewalls, printers, and interfaces, and so on. And next, we'll be discussing about monitoring the hardware sensor for these network devices. And then this is the most important section, creating custom SNMP monitor. We have templates for many models, but only a couple of monitors available by default. But you have any specific requirement to monitor any key performance metrics which are not available by default, and creating it as a custom SNMP monitor is the only way to monitor such metrics. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples on how to do that. And monitoring WAN and VoIP links, and then a couple of network reports. And finally, I'm going to give you some of the troubleshooting tips when you encounter certain problems or when you have trouble reaching some of the devices to monitor the performance. And also, we have a panelist team sitting next to me who is ready to answer all your questions. So during the course of training, you have any questions, please feel free to post it using the webinar chat panel, and our panelist team can answer your questions then and there. All right, so the screen that displays the information of the protocols required to monitor the network devices. And as a rule of thumb, you can monitor any device in OpManager if you have the reachability from the OpManager server. If the devices are reachable and SNMP enabled, we can monitor any device in OpManager. And we rely on SNMP for that. So you have to make sure that before adding all the devices, SNMP is configured on those devices, and then you have to add the proper credentials in OpManager. And when you discover those devices, OpManager will try to communicate to that devices using SNMP, and it will try to monitor the availability, response time, packet loss, and the performance metrics. And we also support monitoring Cisco UCS. We use Cisco UCS API for that, and all other network devices like printers, UPS still rely on SNMP, and we monitor the WAN latency and VoIP latency check, and both are supported currently only for Cisco devices. Okay, so let's talk about monitoring the network performance of a router. So on a router, when you add a router, it will automatically classify it into the respective model. I'm going to show you how it is classified, whether it is a router or switch or firewall. And then when it is getting added, it will add the key performance metrics that's been associated with the respective device template that's been added automatically when the device is discovered. And all you need to do is just set up the thresholds for the respective devices and start monitoring it. So when the respective performance metrics deviate from the configured threshold value, you will OpManager will notify that as an alarm. So from here on, I'll be switching between the product and the presentation slides to explain the use cases. So let me switch to product and show you how OpManager detects whether it is a router or switch or firewall. So you go to device templates under admin, under configuration, device templates. We have device templates for more than 400 device types. And let me search for a Cisco. You can search and see whether the device templates available for the respective model. So let me pick Cisco 2800 for example. So how OpManager classifies whether it is a router or a switch or firewall. So it uses this device template, and on matching this device identifier, the object ID, OpManager will classify the device as Cisco 2800 series, and it will associate this vendor and the category as router. And as you see in the monitor section in the table, we have some of key performance metrics that's been already added to the template. So what OpManager will do is when it detects the Cisco router, it will associate all these performance metrics to the device and it will start monitoring, and the default monitoring interval is 15 minutes. You have an option to update that anytime you want. And that is all you need to do. Once it is discovered, it will associate all these key performance metrics and it starts monitoring it. All that you need to do is you need to update the thresholds for these devices. Let me go to a device snapshot page of a router and show you how it monitors the performance. So let me pick MELab device for example. So this is the device snapshot page of a router, and on to my left you have all the details like IP address, the DNS name, the serial number, and the system description, and the monitoring interval, and so on. And onto my right you see the availability timeline. So it starts monitoring the devices for availability to understand whether the device is available or not, and what is the response time, what is the packet class on the specific device, and so on. You go to router graph. So this is where it monitors all the key performance metrics that we saw in the device template. It will start monitoring all the data, and you see the buffer heads graph and the CPU utilization of a router, and you see any spike. You wanted to drill down and see what is causing the CPU spike and what is the exact value. You can drill down and see, and you have the graph for buffer failures, buffer misses, Cisco memory utilization, and so on. So that is all about monitoring the router performance. And similarly for switch performance, depending upon the vendor and model, you get additional monitors. For example, on a switch, the key performance metrics is backplane utilization. So when you add a switch, you will, along with CPU and memory, you will get an option to monitor the backplane utilization. And also there are more monitors available from the template, and apart from the ones that are available from the device template by default, let me again pick a Cisco device for example. See, on this device, these are all the default performance metrics associated to the device, and apart from that, you wanted to add more monitors, just click on add monitor, and you can go through the list available here, and you can just add associate the respective monitor that you need to monitor from this particular switch. And similarly, for firewall, apart from CPU and memory, you have active session count and more monitors, and also monitoring the printer performance as possible. And you can monitor the status like paper jam, low paper or no paper, low toner or no toner. Let me show you the different types of printers supported in OpManager. I'm just searching for a printer, and you see various types of printers that's supported by OpManager. Let me pick Epson for example, and you see these are all the default performance metrics: the pages printed, average markup, life count. All these are the basic monitors available for this Epson printer. And next we talk about monitoring the bandwidth or traffic usage on the respective devices. So interface performance counters, we monitor bandwidth usage, errors or discards, received and transmitted traffic, total bytes transferred, total bytes received, and the real-time traffic monitors. So all these are SNMP based. So when a device is added and SNMP is enabled on the devices, it scans the port and starts monitoring the interfaces for all the above mentioned monitors. But if you wanted to know who is causing the bandwidth, like which application is using the entire bandwidth, and which user is contributing to the traffic, you wanted to know about all these details, then it is possible only through flow based analysis. And this one particular thing is available as an add-on in OpManager. So it's called NetFlow Analyzer add-on. I'll just show you the possibilities with say, let me navigate to an interface snapshot page. If you have a NetFlow Analyzer add-on and you wanted to know what is the traffic consumption, the particular port, so you get to know the traffic utilization. You wanted to drill down to see more information about the spike, you can still see that. And you wanted to know which are all the application consuming more traffic, or which user is consuming more traffic, you can go through the source and destination to understand that. You can also see the entire conversation. Maybe I have the right I'll pick the right example for you. Yeah, so you can understand which are the top applications contributing to the traffic, and what is the source, what is the top destination contributing to the traffic. And you wanted to know where the traffic is coming from and where the traffic is going to, you can view the entire conversation. But that's available only with NetFlow Analyzer add-on. So let me give you the SNMP based monitoring. So like we monitor the performance of the devices, we also monitor the interfaces. So if you go to the inventory section under the interfaces, you get all the list of interfaces that's been monitored in OpManager. But before scanning all the network, there's one thing that you need to do from the discovery section. So by default, the interface discovery will be disabled. So once you map the credentials and select the rules, in the fourth stage, you have to enable the interface discovery. Only then the interfaces will be discovered and added and start monitoring the interface key performance metrics when you add a router or switch. And you have an option to filter the interfaces. Say you wanted to monitor only the Ethernet interfaces, you can filter and select only the Ethernet interfaces. And you can also filter that based on the admin status, whether it is up or down, and also based on the operational status, whether it's up or down. So once you enable and scan the network, it will automatically add all the interfaces. So let me show you an interface snapshot page. For example, I'm getting into a router page. So as we saw the router graph for the health and performance monitoring, now we see the interface snapshot page. So this is the interface snapshot page, and you get to know the IP address and the interface description and the traffic counter, whether it is 64-bit or 32-bit, and the traffic speed and so on. And on the interface graph page, you get to know the total bytes transferred, interface traffic, interface utilization on the respective port, errors and discards, and total number of packets transmitted, and so on. And that is the thing that we monitor from the interfaces. And like we have templates for devices, we also have templates for interfaces. And what are the best thing about interface templates? Or you wanted to do any bulk configurations, you can go to interface templates and do that. Say you wanted to enable or disable the monitoring for specific interface type, you can do that. And you wanted to configure a monitoring interval, say you wanted to reduce the monitoring intervals for some of the critical interfaces, you can do that. And you wanted to define thresholds for the interface monitors like traffic utilization or errors or discards, you have an option to do that. And some of you might be not interested to monitor the status availability of the specific interfaces. So in that case, you wanted to enable or disable the status polling for the respective interface, you can do that. So you go to admin, and under the configuration, like device template, we have interface templates. So you go to interface template and pick the example that you want, and this is where it will allow you to, so you wanted to enable or disable the performance monitoring, you can do that. And you can update the monitoring interval, and say you're not interested to monitor the errors rate, so you can simply disable that. And you wanted to disable the status polling, you can still do that. If you disable the status polling and enable the performance monitoring, it will not give you an alert when the interface goes down or it becomes up, but it will just monitor the utilization and discard rates on that particular interface. And you, after modifying the changes, you just hit on save and apply, and you can get that applied to the devices that you want. That is about interface monitoring. And next we have is hardware sensors. So apart from monitoring the availability, response time, packet loss, and the key performance metrics, the interface utilization, you can also monitor the hardware sensors on the network devices, and the sensor categories like power, temperature, voltage, battery status, disk array data, and the fan status. And the supported vendors are Cisco, Juniper, Dell, and HP. So if it is on HP, you need to make sure that the HP Insight Manager is installed on the respective remote device. So now the question is, how do I enable the hardware sensor monitoring for the network devices? So you just go to admin, and under the basic settings, you have system settings. And here under the hardware monitor, it will be disabled by default. You just need to make sure that you enable the hardware monitoring. And you wanted to suppress the hardware alarms, you can do that. Or you wanted to set monitoring interval for fetching the hardware alarms alone, you can set a different monitoring interval for monitoring the hardware sensors, and you can just save it. So from the moment you save this, it is going to automatically bring in and monitor the hardware sensors and alert you when any of the services goes down. And you wanted to fetch the hardware report, you just go to reports, and under the health and performance, okay, you have the health report somewhere. Okay, okay, it is not available here, but you go to, okay, let me search for it from once again. Have hardware health report here. So here you can select what type of device and what is the metric that you wanted to fetch the information for, whether you wanted to generate the report for fan RPM or fan percentage or the power watts, power volts. So you can pull out the report and filter that for the devices. And next, so as I said, this is the most important section of this presentation, and creating a custom SNMP monitor. Yes, and the prerequisites are you just need to make sure that the respective device is enabled with SNMP, and to add a custom SNMP monitor, you need the vendor MIP files. So you have to make sure that you have the vendor MIP files, and the vendor MIP file should be available under the OpManager MIPS folder. And then it will not be in the human readable format, so you need to validate the SNMP word OIDs. How do you do that? You have tools like MIP browser to validate the SNMP OIDs. You can just update the MIB files into the tool, and that is going to filter that and show you what OID and what is the information, what sorts of information the OID can pull out for you, and so on. So you have to make sure that all these three are available, and then you can go ahead and add a custom SNMP monitor in OpManager. So how do you obtain these MIB files? You can either get it from the vendor directly, or you have a lot of MIP files available in the sites like oidview.com that got a lot of MIP files from various vendors. So you can download one from the website, and so now you have the MIP file. How do you load that in the tool? And it's simple. So let's say you have access to your monitoring tool, the monitoring server. So you simply go to the installation folder, and under OpManager you have MIPS folder, and all you need to do is you simply copy the MIB files and put it here. The advantage of loading the MIB files into the server directly is for certain vendors they'll give you like more than 20 MIB files. So in that case you can simply copy and paste that here, and the MIB files will generally be in MIB format, CMI format, or text format, and so on. There's also another way that you can upload the MIB files. Let's say you do not have an access to the server directly. So as it is a web-based tool, you can simply go to tools, load MIB browser, and from here you just browse and upload the MIB file that you want. So that will be pushed to the server automatically. All right, so I have a couple of examples to show you how to create a custom SNMP monitor for Palo Alto Networks 7000 series. So before creating a custom SNMP monitor, let me jump into the product. Let me go to the respective device template, and let me search for the Palo Alto, and as you see, I have templates available for various models, but I don't have it for Palo Alto 7000 series. So I need to create a new template for it first. So only first when the templates are available, only then you can create a custom SNMP monitor for it. So it is very simple to add a template in OpManager. Palo Alto Networks, we call this as 7000 series, and I can just select the vendor if it is already available, or I can also create a new one by clicking the new button, and I can select the right category. I wanted to define the monitoring interval. I want to reduce this to 5 minutes. I can do that, and I can also update the icon for the respective device. And if I know the device identifier, I can simply type the object ID of this particular device, and I can add it manually, or the effective way is to just click on query, select the respective device that you have added, and with the SNMP credentials you can map that and hit on query. So from this moment it is going to initiate a query to the device through SNMP for getting the object ID, and once it receives the object ID, it can be added to the respective template. So right now I will add a manual dummy OID for this particular Palo Alto. Okay, I've added a dummy OID right now and I just save it. So that is how it is simple to create a template for the models that you want, and you wanted to know where it will be available. So you can filter this to custom category, and as you see, the template is now ready. And now only the template is ready. And if I add any Palo Alto device in OpManager, it is going to look for this particular object ID, and matching this ID, then it will associate the type as Palo Alto Networks 7000 series, vendor as Palo Alto Networks, and category as firewall. And it just helps me with the classification, and then it is going to monitor the availability, response time, and packet loss. But I wanted to monitor a specific information on these devices, and that's where our example is. So I wanted to create a custom SNMP monitor for active session and active tunnels. So how do I do that? From the template, I can just click on add monitor, and as I said, I have default monitors available in this list. If anything that works for me, I can add one from here. Otherwise, I can simply click on SNMP, and I already have the MIB files from the vendor. So I've downloaded the MIB files, Palo Alto MIPS, and I have all these MIPS, and I've already copied this to the OpManager MIPS folder here. You see the pan common MIPS, all these are related to Palo Alto Networks. So already loaded that. So how I can import this here? I just hit on from MIP, and from here I can just select okay. Looks like I have some problem here. Let me refresh this for once. Please excuse me for the delay. And if you have any questions so far, please feel free to post it using the webinar chat panel, and the panelist team can answer your questions. All right, let me go to tools again. I'll give it a try. I have to go to template. All right, I have it here. All right, so I'm just going to look for the pan common MIP, and once I have loaded this, I'm going to search for session active, and I just click on OK, and then I'm going to count this as session active 1. And let's say for 5 minutes, unit as numbers, and I simply click on OK. And now the session active monitor is added to the template. And I also wanted to do this for tunnels. So again, with the same process, I load pan common MIP, expand this. So I wanted the active tunnels to be added. Just click OK. Active tunnels. The unit as numbers. And that is how you create a custom SNMP monitor using the MIB file. And once it is done, you just save it. Excuse me. Yeah, just go to custom category and look for your Palo Alto 7000 networks, and you see the two monitors that we have added now is added to the template. And right now, if I discover any Palo Alto network device from 7000 series, it is going to classify the device as well as it is going to add these monitor for monitoring. And you wanted to see this information on the device snapshot page, all you have to do is just hit on show dial, and this is going to bring in the information and display that in the device snapshot page for you. And with this, I already know that I wanted to add a monitor for active session and active tunnels. What if I don't know what I need to monitor? How do I validate this from the MIB file to understand which particular monitor that I wanted to add for this particular device? And that's where you need to use the MIB browser tool. So you go to tools and click on MIB browser. Here, load the pan common MIBs again and expand this. So I wanted to understand what this particular monitor does. So this particular monitor is going to bring me the information and say the session limit reached for the aggregated profile drop session. So likewise, if you need to understand what monitor and the information of the monitor, you can just click on, select the respective metric that you wish to monitor, and you can go through the MIB node description to understand what it actually does. And more importantly, if you're loading this from the MIB file and adding it, and it's supposed to be a counter monitor, because the counter monitors are the integer that returns the value in integer. Only the integer value can be stored in the numeric tables that can display the data and graph for you in OpManager. Otherwise, if you're adding any string monitor, so in our example, I have next is showing string to numeric. So if it is going to be a string monitor, then you have to do one additional step in order to make OpManager to store the data for you in the database. Let me load a host resource MIB for you for this example, and I look for, okay, so HR printer detected state. So this one, you see the octet string. This is a string monitor. This will, sometimes it might respond to you in text, or sometimes it respond to you in numbers. But whether it is responding the value in numbers or whether it is responding the value in string, it is a string monitor that cannot store the value in the numeric table. The only thing that you need to do, when you create a custom SNMP monitor for such syntax is, let me try this for Epson monitor, Epson printer. Select the respective template. Just click on add monitor. Since I already know the monitor, the OID, I just simply paste. Okay, I think it is not copied properly. Okay, let's assume that this is the OID for the string monitor, and the only thing that I need to do is just change the string OID from string to numeric. So this is the only change that you need to do when you add a monitor, so that though it is a string monitor, it will read the information and it will convert that and store that in the numeric table so that it can display the data for you. And the functional expressions are not only useful for this. Say you're monitoring a temperature, and you're monitoring that in Celsius, and you wanted to see the data in Fahrenheit, you can convert that. And you are already monitoring it in Fahrenheit and you wanted to see the data in Celsius, you can do that as well. And also you wanted to convert the data from byte to gigabyte, you can use the functional expression to do that. Okay, and there's one more example. We have multiple OIDs with arithmetic operation. So right now, all that we discussed is monitoring the information from this single OID. But what if I have, say, for example, I have a Cisco memory utilization. I'm monitoring a memory utilization for a Cisco device. And for this, I don't receive the information from single OID. And I receive the information of used memory in a different OID and free memory in a different OID. And the calculation that I need to apply to understand the overall memory utilization is memory used multiplied by 100 and divided by total memory. And for getting the total memory, I need to add memory used plus memory free. So this is the calculation and this is the OID, and you simply apply the arithmetic operation, and when you add the respective OID, you simply paste the OID after applying all the arithmetic operation, provide a monitor name, and then you simply add that and apply to the respective device. That's how you need to add a custom SNMP monitor with arithmetic operation. So that is all about adding custom SNMP monitor, and you have any questions, feel free to post it in the chat panel. Alright, so with that we'll move on to the next section, monitoring the WAN links. So let's say you have your development center in India and your headquarters in US, and the employees from India trying to access some of the business critical application through a WAN link, trying to reach the headquarters. And if something goes wrong, that will cost you that will end up in a productivity loss. So you need to make sure that you're monitoring the WAN links and the WAN links are always stays healthy. OpManager helps you do that for you. It identifies the network paths with high round trip time, and it identifies where the outage happened by viewing the hop-wise latency graph. And also you can configure the devices to send SNMP traps, the IPSLA traps to the OpManager server, so you can monitor when there is a connectivity loss, it triggers an alert. You can also define thresholds for the round trip time, average payload and timeout, so that when it deviates from the respective threshold value, you receive an alarm for the respective devices. And now how to add these WAN RTT monitors in OpManager, and the prerequisites are it supports only Cisco devices, and it should be enabled with IPSLA, and the iOS version must be 12.3 or later. And one additional thing is the SNMP read and write community should be configured on the devices, because when you add a WAN monitor for the respective device in OpManager, it is going to write the configurations on the router. So you have to make sure that the right community is configured here. And then, as I said, you can configure the devices to send traps to OpManager server. And how do you add that? Let me show that from the product. You go to inventory and IPSLA. Sorry, let me get into the right demo setup. I have the data available in this setup for IPSLA. So just select WAN and just hit on plus icon, and all you need to do is name the WAN monitor and select the device and select the source interface and the destination IP address. The destination IP can be any IP across the network, and then simply save it and apply the thresholds. Let me go to a device snapshot page for the WAN monitors. So you monitor the minimum round trip time, average round trip time. So you get to know the round trip time threshold violation history, the round trip time history, availability history, and path hop round trip time history, and so on. And you have a dedicated dashboard for the IPSLA for WAN monitors. So under the network, you have WAN RTT overview that gives you the least performing paths, the least available paths. And for the hop view graph, there's no data available, but it shows you where exactly the problem is. Similarly, it does monitor the VoIP performance, so the variation and delay between arriving packets, the time taken for voice packets to reach the destination. It also monitors the packet loss, the data loss during the transmission, and also the mean opinion score. So similarly, for WAN monitors, you have You can also monitor the VoIP links. Go to the respective device. So you can monitor the source destination jitter, destination source jitter, and all the informations. You also have a dedicated dashboard available for the VoIP as well. So you know the top call paths by latency, top call performance by different locations, top call paths by jitter, source, and so on. And next we are going to talk about some of the reports. We're going to talk about this router or switch health report. You go to reports, and under the health and performance, pull out the health report for router. So that is going to bring you the top 10 data, top 10 devices with CPU, memory, packet loss, temperature, availability, and response time. Similarly, you have this report for switch as well. And next we can identify the devices with high packet loss and response time. We go to availability and response category. You pull out the devices by packet loss. You can also apply filters based on the devices that you want. Right now it is available for all devices. You wanted to pull this only for switches or routers, or you have all the network devices associated in a business view group, and you can pull out the respective group and apply that filter to pull out the report. Next we have is interface availability report. So from the availability and response section, you have all interface availability report. So that gives you the information of the uptime, the interfaces in the maintenance mode, on hold status, and so on. Similarly, you can identify the overloaded devices with high CPU and memory, and identify the devices with heavy incoming and outgoing traffic, and identify the interfaces with high incoming and outgoing traffic. All the data that you can pull out from the health and performance section. And next we are getting into the section troubleshooting. So troubleshooting the performance monitor not collecting data. So when a performance monitor not collecting data on the network devices, what you have to make sure is make sure the respective monitors are added to the respective device. So sometimes from the template you miss to apply. By default the CPU, memory, and temperature will be added, but if you have added a specific performance metric but that is not associated to the respective device, you will not see the data for the respective monitor. So just make sure that respective monitor is associated to the devices. And next you have to make sure that the port 161 is not blocked by a firewall, and you can simply test the credentials. So you go to respective device. Sometimes the credentials, if you have changed it on the device and if you miss to update that in OpManager, that time OpManager cannot communicate with the devices. In that case, you can simply check the credentials for the respective device by hitting on the test credential here. And if the credentials are not matching or failing, you have to update the right credentials. And as I said, you can use the web browser tool to troubleshoot this problem. You go to settings, and under tools, under the web browser. So this tool is used to troubleshoot the SNMP communication problem. All you need to do is load one of the MIB file or the relevant MIB file and select the host right here, and associate that with the respective credential. Just you select the OID and hit on get, and if the communication is fine, then you will get the response, or then otherwise you will get to know what is the error and you need to fix that problem. And similarly for SNMP v3, we see some of the issues in support team. Say when the context name is not configured on the end device. So when you add a credential for the SNMP v3, So the context name, when the context name is not configured on the router or switches, just leave this blank and add a credential and associate that with the devices. If the context name is provided, then you can map that here. Otherwise, do not try filling in with any string, because that could lead to a problem. That's one tip that I can give you when you add a SNMP v3. And there are also engine ID duplication. So when there is an engine ID duplication for the respective device, then OpManager cannot communicate to that device. So you have to make sure that the engine ID is not duplicated for the devices. It should be unique. Let me see if I can show you that. Yeah, so there are two tables that you can check for the engine ID duplication. The USM table. So this have the information of all the SNMP v3 devices and the engine ID here. And if you see that any of the engine ID is duplicated with the other devices, then both of the devices will not have the SNMP communication between those devices. There's another table that you can look for is engine table and USM table. And troubleshooting interfaces. So when the interfaces are not discovered from the discovery profile, as we discussed before, you have to make sure that the interface discovery option is enabled. And as we discussed, you have to make sure that the 161 port is not blocked and the right credentials are associated. And you can use the MIB browser tool to troubleshoot this problem. Similarly, for interface not collecting data, you can once again use the MIB browser tool, and from here you will use all the interface information that we fetch to monitor the traffic utilization, errors, discards, or using the if MIB. So when you load the if MIB, so the if in octet is used to identify the in traffic utilization, and if out octet is used to fetch the information of the out traffic utilization. Likewise, in if MIB, we identify all the interface related information, the speed of the interface, the admin status, operational status, and so on. So with that, we are coming to the end of this presentation, and as I said before, we have our technical expert Sanjeev, who validated all the top questions that we received today, and he's going to discuss all those questions right now for the benefit of larger audience. So he got all the questions added to another presentation slide. Give me a second, I'll just load that and transfer the session to Sanjeev, who will take over and explain all the questions that we received. Thank you.
Hello everybody, this is Sanjeev, product expert and panelist from OpManager. So we have had some set of questions over the session, so let's just get this reviewed one by one. First up, we have for IPSLA, do we have to enable the responder on both source and destination? So that is primarily with the end destination that you can actually have the IPSLA being enabled, and the command that you actually use to enable the responder is show enable and then IPSLA responder. So you can actually have the responder to enable only on the destination side, and it would be more than sufficient. However, if there's a possibility, you can do it for both source as well as the destination. Is there a way to add my fast Ethernet 0/0 interface as a real-time traffic widget for my network dashboard? Yes, there is a possibility. Let me just get to the installation. So when you go here, let me just click on the specific view. Just give me a few minutes. So this could be accomplished with the real-time traffic that you can actually see in the dashboard page. So once when you hover to the dashboard page, you will find an option called as add widget. So I'm here with the dashboard page. So let's just say if you wish to click on the new dashboard page, you will already have an option that would have been created with the existing dashboard. So if you wish to add any of the widgets from the default dashboard, you can just go here and then click on the add widget view. Let me just go ahead and add a dashboard again. So just give me a minute. Ones that we see are with the default dashboards. So when you go here, you will find something called as a real-time traffic, and then click on next. And then you can also associate it to all administrators or operator based on the choice that you wanted, and then click on create. So since this name is already existing, just going to create it with another name. Just click on create, and then you will find that this specific dashboard has been added to the overview link successfully. So once when you find this, you will be able to add whatever widgets that you wanted over here, and then you will be able to see the real-time traffic in the dashboard page. And these are the dashboards that you visibly see in the window pane. Will I be able to add my Cisco 4400 or 4500 firewall series? Yes, however, you might have to check if the default template is already available. So we may make a mapping by identifying the device's SOID and then get the device to the appropriate type and category. So once when you go to the templates page, go to settings and then go to your configuration and then device template. You may just search it for based on Cisco or Cisco 4400 series and then see if that specific template is available or not. Just in case if it's not available, then as Suresh explained, you should be able to use the add template option by specifying the appropriate template vendor type and category, and use this query device option to query the appropriate SOID and then map it to the device that you wanted to configure your templates as well as the monitors by procuring the MIB files from the vendor. What is a round trip time? So round trip time in IPSLA terminology would mean that the time that is actually taken for the data or the packet to reach from the source to the destination. So from OpManager perspective, we have the IPSLA monitoring where they actually take a calculation of the minimum, maximum as well as the average round trip time and then plot it with the help of the graph. Now all this is done also using the SNMP path echo operation, and you will also be able to see a visibility of the hop by hop path graph as well as the other traversals that the data has been transferred. So this is all about the round trip time. How to monitor MS SQL servers that are in a workgroup environment. So let's say for example, if there are any specific servers that are in a workgroup environment, or probably something that may not be connected to the office or the corporate domain, you can actually use the same WMI credentials where you specify the domain name as IP address / the user logon name and with the password. So to actually add the MS SQL monitors, you will have to go to settings and then you will have to go to monitoring and then application monitors and then select the MS SQL monitor. Click on apply configuration where you will be able to see any few of the devices that are already enabled for WMI and with the MS SQL monitoring capability with it. Once when this is done, you will be able to select the monitor names across and then apply it to the devices. How do I enable the monitoring interval for my hardware monitors on a global level? So when you go to settings and then go to the system settings, you will find an option called as hardware monitor. So this is where you can actually specify the monitoring interval of the hardware as well as enable the hardware monitoring for all of the metrics on a global level. So once when you select this, you will also be able to suppress the hardware alarms for addition to this. And once when you save the changes, the data would be successfully, the monitoring interval would be successfully applied to the servers as well. How to ignore specific error conditions like attention trouble critical for specific devices. so that alarm doesn't get generated for the criteria that has been specified. So what we do here is there are some scenarios where network administrators would make a choice of the criteria that they wanted. So in certain scenarios, you will have the need to actually change the criteria options. And far apart from it, if there are few critical notifications that has to be sent only to the network team, you can make a choice by selecting only notify only when the severity is critical. So you will have to make the change to the criteria profiling option here, as well as you will have to enable appropriate criteria notification. So let's say, for example, if you wish to have only the critical alert, you can actually select when the device misses downpour and notify when the IT criteria is only for critical. Just select any one of the devices that you would like to, and then specify the appropriate time window, and then you can make a scheduling by saving the appropriate changes to this. So this is what it is. What are vendor MIPS and what is the purpose of adding it? So vendor MIPS are nothing but the MIPS that you have obtained from different vendors. There are so many different vendors that you find in the market, like Cisco, Microsoft, NetApp, or you have the F5 load balancers and vendors like that. So the main purpose of adding these MIPS is that a few of the metrics that are being monitored by them would have the appropriate OID that matches the requirement of your environment. So that is the reason why in few scenarios we might have to make a research or probably ask you to contact the vendor directly, just in case if we don't find the appropriate MIP file. So the vendor MIP files are very generic, and the OID variables as well as the specifications might vary from vendor to vendor. How do I disable alerting for my non-critical interfaces? Yes, we do have an option. So when you can do it either from the inventory. When you go to inventory, you will find the list of interfaces already available. So when you select this, go to any one of the specific interfaces, and then you will have an option called as the unmanage, or that's just for unmanaging. So when you save the changes, the appropriate changes would be done. So far apart from it, you can also select it here, and then you will have an option here: in speed, outspeed, manage, as well as the status pool. So by enabling or disabling this, you will be able to see that you are not able to send any of the alerts from your non-critical interfaces. So it is as good as just unmanaging them. So just select it all and then click on unmanage, so that that specific interface would be completely unmanaged. Or even at all, if you would probably don't need it, you can also select it and then you can completely delete this using the delete option. Is there a report to identify servers with heavy incoming traffic? Yes, let's just see it. So when you go to reports, and then when you go to health and performance, you have identified devices with heavy incoming traffic. So when you specify and select this report, you will be able to find out the device name as well as the interfaces that are associated to it, followed by the min, max, and then the average value, and then select the filter option to specify what is the time window that you actually require based on last month, this month, or a couple of weeks. Or you can also specify more criteria options. You can export it to PDF or an Excel sheet, or there are some specific options where you can also schedule this or make a copy of this or email this to the concerned management. So this is what we have for today, and just in case if you would require more help, we are available through the YouTube channel, where you can actually have the list of videos that are actually being uploaded and verified by our panel experts. And then you have the help.opmanager.com. We are also pretty much active through the forums, so you can actually make use of the complete Manage Engine Pit Stop community, as well as there are few channels relating to the license, or if you're evaluating it, then you can actually channelize through the eval-itom, or you can also use the following email address for OpManager-support. And then you can also reach us through the following numbers that is marked here in this page at the end, at the bottom of this page. And our next training is actually scheduled for October 17th at 6:30 a.m. GMT. So that would be for the effective fault management and IT automation, covering the following zones that we see. And we thank you once again for your time. I hope the session was more informative. Do also let us know your honest feedback. Thanks again and have a great day.